if you can remember one thing, remember where you look is where you go. And that, I think, is a key to run a successful business. The other thing I want to talk about is in my studio, you know, I have a couple employees and I have a space, and you can get really caught up in the business of photography. And you can spend a lot of time thinking about the business of photography. And that doesn't mean not to think about it. But what you have to remember is why you got into photography in the first place. More than likely, you got into photography because you had some interest in it, that you turned into sort of a love or a passion. A hobby became a profession. And when you forget about that, your pictures become really boring because you get so caught up in the business of photography, you forget about making pictures. And it's really important to always have personal projects. And tonight, in the slideshow, I'm going to show jobs. I'm going to show personal projects. Because I find most of the time my personal projects are what get me the best jobs. Because when I do personal projects, it's whatever is the most current thinking in my mind, whatever I'm most passionate about, and people feel that passion, and then they're attracted to it, and then they want that for their brand or their product or their whatever we're doing. In my case, people. And I mean, a case in point is we were in LA last week shooting an ad job, and the shots are essentially the same look as you'll see like in the Cuba portraits, or the Selma portraits, or the Bayou portraits. The same look, they're just different people. Instead of people from that place, they're people that represent this brand. And when you're putting together a presentation, if you're always doing personal work, you have fresh, new things that haven't been seen and are exciting for people to share. And I think a lot of times in photography, as a business, people get so caught up in the business, like I've never really thought of a business model, like I'm going to take pictures of this, and this is going to get me this, and that's going to get me that. And there's nothing wrong with that way of thinking, but that's not how I work. I work where I photograph things I like. Whatever I like is what I photograph. What I like is what I show. Because that way the jobs I get are what I like. It becomes a circle. So if you want to do pictures that, if you want to make photographs of a certain thing as your career or as your hobby, that's what you ought to do for your fun. And that will all become a big circle, and your jobs will suddenly become like your personal work, and it'll all go down the pathway of love. As opposed to darkness. Because then that's when you get caught up making pictures, because you think you ought to make the pictures, and you hear the word should, and then you should just get rid of it. And I remember a long time ago I had an agent that I no longer have, thankfully, and the person said that my book was commercially unviable. Well, that's cool. You know, like this new work of yours is like, I don't know where you're coming from, but that is like useless, like blah, 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 blah. So he dropped me. Boom! I went, okay. The next day I got a call from a New York agency for the biggest job of my life from that book. Because it was unique, it stood apart, and I got the biggest fee up to that my entire life, bigger than I ever imagined you could get paid. And this guy missed out on all of it because he was so narrowly focused on what I should be doing as opposed to what I do. And so my whole business model is do what I like, get what I like in front of people. If they like it, I like it, then we can work together. And there's enough people in the world, if you actually get out and about, you'll find you don't need a whole lot of people to support your business. You just need maybe a dozen really good people that really love you, that are going to give you some juicy projects for the year. And you know, keep it going, and those people breed other people. And when you do your own thing and you show some passion and you show some integrity and you show some honest point of view and you have a guiding vision of how you see things and you can communicate with your words, you know, what you're going to do before you do it. Because essentially, we're like TV preachers where we say, send me money and you'll be saved. Instead, send me money and you'll get this picture. But the picture doesn't exist, right? So it's all based, it's faith-based. It's just like, you know, that kind of situation. We're a faith-based service industry. So people have to believe in you. And if they don't believe, they're not going to give you the money to get what they don't know is going to happen. But they have to imagine it's going to happen right. So you really have to have a point of view, and you have to have an ability to communicate that with words so people, I'm not going to say fall in love with you, but they definitely want to have a couple dates and pay you some money. It's not necessarily prostitution, but it's kind of close. So you want to definitely, you know, get your services out there, have people be attracted to it, and want to hang out with you for a few days and make pictures and have fun. And hopefully the result is memorable, and that breeds more photographs and more jobs and more opportunity. So with that, I'm going to show a little bit of work. And first, before I do that, I forgot to tell you one thing. My big thing is also your history is what makes you special. Wherever you come from in the world in your whole life. And so before I show my pictures, I'm going to give you a little background on my history and what influences my work. And then I'm going to show you a little selection of photographs that range from all different projects. Starts out with a wrestling project with Billy Corgan from Smashing Pumpkins, who I had a long relationship doing music business stuff. Then it's going to have various portraits that'll be business people, it'll be celebrities, it'll be people for other jobs. And then it'll stop, and the next project will be Rwanda, which was a big ad job for S.C. Johnson. And then there'll be several personal projects. It'll be, I believe, the Bayou, is that right? And then there's Selma. Then the last project's Cuba, where I taught a workshop in April, and that's some work I did during that workshop. And then once the images are done, I'll get back here and talk a little bit, and then we can field some questions and go to it. Does that sound like a plan? Yeah. Now we can have the lights off.
Do you want to kill the... Okay.
Is this queued up, or is it?
Roy, that one's
Sit down just until it starts it? Okay.
Yeah.
This work is incredible. It's a very minimalist project. Not really into detail and texture.
How did you light it?
Yeah, well, I use this new LED I bought from Calumet. Oh, okay. Is this the entry then? Just gotta go a little faster. I'm very hyperactive. All right. So this is my dad. My dad was a photojournalist for the state of Illinois. Oh, can you go back because I didn't get enough of my dad in there. Okay. And action. Okay, this is my dad. He was a photojournalist for the state of Illinois. And my dad really is a huge reason I'm a photographer. Because my grandfather took pictures, both my grandfathers, one had a 5x7, and my dad did pictures professionally. And he was a photojournalist. He basically made pictures for the governor, for politicians, of politicians, for politicians. Then in '68, it was Bring Your Kid to School Day. This is me dressed for success, going to school, going to work with my dad, and he was photographing a president giving a speech in Springfield, Illinois, where I grew up. And I was a kid that got in trouble a lot in school because I was always curious, and I was wandering around, and I'd sneak up on the fire escape and look out the window, and I'd get all these notes home that, you know, I wasn't paying attention. You're a smart kid, but, you know, you need to get it together. And then when I went to work with my dad, he got to, you know, who was going in alleys and getting up high taking pictures, and he was going all these places, and no one yelled at him. He didn't get in trouble, and people actually liked what he was doing. And I thought, that's what I need to be doing, because he doesn't get yelled at for all the things that I like to do. Because I like to explore, and I like to see the world. And the only people that were in his, you know, he had the Secret Service, him and the president, and I stood and watched this whole thing, and it was fantastic. And from that day forward, that's pretty much all I wanted to do. Is it pause? No. There's three major influences that my family gave me. The first one was a very spiritual. I grew up in a very spiritual family. My dad really believed in reading books, seeking out inner truth, and all this kind of spiritual base, all religions pretty much. And it was my dad was an intellectual that talked a lot, and we spent a lot of time about spiritual stuff. My mom was a painter. Her favorite painter was Andrew Wyeth. It was the first art exhibit I ever went to. And so I was lucky to grow up with a lot of art books, and so art was a big influence. So I had spirituality and religion, and I had art. And those two things combined. Then the third thing that added the real twist in my life was motorsports. I always went to church on Sunday morning, and I went to races Sunday night. Car races, motorcycle races. And so this kind of thing was what built my aesthetic up till about 1973. So I was really into a very odd combination of influences, and that's really what informs most of my pictures. I'm into drama, I'm into loud, I'm into, but I'm also into quiet and introspective. And I also like to find a more artistic emotion in my pictures. So all these things influence who I am and where I come from. My hero as a kid was Evel Knievel, and he still is, if I'm mad. I mean, he had great clothes, he rode motorcycles, and he wasn't afraid, and he accepted the consequences. And I find being afraid is one of your biggest obstacles in life, in business particularly, because you're not afraid to be honest with yourself and honest with your clients. And Evel Knievel spoke his mind, he did his thing, and when it went wrong, he accepted the consequences. And I'm all about taking risks. I'm all about trying not to be afraid, and that's why I love him. Then in 1973, this is me, and I bought my first Kiss record. And I discovered glitter rock, David Bowie, Alice Cooper, Kiss. And I went to a concert of Kiss, and there was blood, loud music, all the things that have racing, super great costumes, lighting. And in that moment, I realized there's a big world bigger than Springfield, Illinois, and that I didn't want to be a journalist because I wasn't really interested in trying to find the truth. I was interested in creative stuff that these guys are doing. These guys, I didn't want to be a rock star, but I wanted to do something that had a lot of conceptual drama and had a lot of really stirred people's human emotions. And glitter rock definitely put me into the art school track. And so I can dedicate everything that I've done to glitter rock because it really opened up my mind out of small town America and realized that there's a whole big world out there. And I think conceptually, ideas are what make work the best and the most important. And that comes from this. So if you want to strike that,
Yeah.
we'll watch some pictures and we'll talk things out. you very much. We'll wait for our little light to come on.
Thank you, Jerry.
The last couple projects there are 100% just projects that I've done for myself. But those projects inform, my point of view, and it helps me illustrate new ideas to share with my clients. And it also keeps you fresh, and it keeps ideas in your pocket. Because one thing about being a photographer is a lot of it's sort of right now, and you have to sort of come up with things quick. And if you're not exercising your brain and pushing forward by doing your own thing, you become stale and you become like last year's party, and that's not very good for your pocketbook or for your emotional state. So I really want to encourage everybody to always be working on personal projects, and it can be whatever it is that turns you on, and that what turns you on will end up being in your book, which will turn on clients to how you see the world. And just don't be afraid of yourself. Don't be afraid of your ideas. Don't be afraid of how you see things. We're not doctors. No one's going to die. You screw up a picture for yourself, you just got to do it again. And even with a client, nowadays with digital, you can keep working on it. So the biggest thing is to get over the fear of yourself. And especially if you want to photograph people, you got to believe in yourself, because people aren't going to you just can't walk up to somebody on the street and get somebody to work with you if they're not going to believe in you. And it doesn't take a lot. You just got to be confident. And if you believe in your purpose and your guiding vision of who you are and what you're trying to do in your project, that passion for what you're doing is effective in getting people to cooperate for 5 minutes to take a picture. It's not a lot, but the number one thing is you have to believe in yourself. You have to be fearless, embrace failure. When you fail, learn why you failed, and try to incorporate that in your next piece, because maybe you learn something that's awesome. And to be super optimistic, be totally glass half full, not glass half empty. You gotta because people really aren't really into dark and negative, especially if you're walking to real people. It kind of scares them. So you got to be honest. You can't be fake, like you're working it, but you just got to be honest and real, and draw people into your projects. And then it's good to show them what you're doing. Not so much what you did with them, but to have some stuff with you to illustrate what you're working on, to get sometimes people to cooperate. But I think personal projects are really the key to staying fresh, staying into your work, and also I find my clients, big ad agencies, big companies, huge companies, love to see what you're passionate about and what you're really into, and then they try to incorporate that into their branding. And then it also gives you a vocabulary to visually show somebody what you're talking about when you're working on a project. So that's, to me, the real simple key to anything, is just being yourself, putting it in the work, and then, of course, getting it in front of people. No one's going to know you exist if you don't put your work out there. Modern world's a lot easier. You don't have to knock on as many doors, but you still have to knock on doors. But there's a lot of places to get your work out there. And whether it be an art gallery or an advertising commission, it's all work. It's all getting the work up, showing up, being on time, simple stuff, and then it generally works out. But I've ran my whole business not as a branded concept, but just what do I want to do, get that in the book, and it makes it happen. And I sort of think photography is kind of like having diplomatic immunity. Not that you won't go to jail, but you have this vision that can get you to do things that you wouldn't normally do. Like, I would never talk to all those Cuban people if I didn't have a camera in my hand. I would never go to Louisiana and drive around the bayou if I didn't have a camera in my hand. I wouldn't go to Selma, Alabama and just walk around the streets and meet people. But with a camera, I feel like I'm Superman and I can just talk to anybody. They might say no, they might say yes, but there's a certain, sort of gives me the key to want to walk into people's lives and experience it, and experience what's going on in the world. It also gives me a reason to live out, dreams I've had. There's so many clients I've talked into jobs that I just wanted to do. I always wanted to go on tour with a rock band, so I convinced a giant rock band, can I go on tour for 6 weeks with you and we'll do a book? That sounds like a great idea. They pay you, you get to do your dream, and you have a good time. I mean, there's just so many things that give you the immunity to fulfill yourself in photography, and don't be afraid to mention that to whatever clientele you have. If there's an idea you want to do, just do it. And hopefully it'll be successful and great. Otherwise, do it again, and do it again, and do it again. And you have to sort of have relentless optimism. And also, don't be afraid to walk away from things that aren't right. You know, say no, because bad news travels a lot faster than good news. When you screw something up, it's not good. I've said no to many, many very lucrative jobs just because it wasn't a good fit. I'd rather have somebody else do it or somebody else screw it up. That way, you know, I can feel good about life. Does anybody have any questions?
I see a lot of film looking. I can't believe I'm asking you a technical question, but do you shoot digital and film? All digital?
I shoot, for my jobs, everything you saw here, probably 98% of it was digital. I was a film person most of my life, because you can see that I'm not 19. I didn't go to digital. I was like the last guy to go digital, because I'm like a hopeless romantic. I still have my darkroom. I did a job last year that was all photograms. You know what I mean? I'm still selling it if I can. But you can't really sell digital very well in ad agencies because everybody's in a hurry. I mean, I'd say you couldn't, but I didn't go digital till I could make my digital look like my film.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's my aesthetic. Now, some, you know, like my daughter might come up, she becomes a photographer, she might have this whole new thing, which is going to be awesome, because her world will only be that world, right? But my world is that sort of other world, so for the most part, my pictures I try to make look like my film. I just try to duplicate what I do with film. I'm not a glamour photographer. I'm not into over-retouching things, or I like people's imperfections. For me, imperfections create interest. Hair blowing in the wind, to me, is beautiful. You know, lines in someone's face is beautiful. To me, it's like when people are so perfect, it's not interesting. That's my aesthetic. It might not be other people's aesthetic, and that's cool. That's what makes us all different. But I don't do a lot of that stuff only because it's not my personal interest. I kind of like the beauty of the authentic person and the life they lived, and try to have that what carries into the image. But yeah, they're mostly digital.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Paul, who did you look at? Who informed your work? Because I see some things that I want to see if I have any kind of connection of what year. Did you go through school? Did you go through formal training? Did you take art history? What was it? Because I see a lot of the FSA photographers and what I saw.
Well, I have to tell you that I grew up with a mother that was a painter, so I saw a lot of classic art. And also, my mom was really into flea markets and junk stores. So a lot of my aesthetic was those old photos. She always let me buy one photo. They cost, like in those days, like a quarter or a nickel. And so a lot of my aesthetic is from tintypes, daguerreotypes, old photos where people, there's this like whole story. I'd look at this in the car and it'd be like, where'd this guy live? What did he do? You know, there's a whole narrative by his gesture, the way he stood, the way he looked. There was a certain feeling to those.
Right.
So that's the basis. And then I went to art school and I studied art, a history of photography, and all those FSA guys, and Avedon, and Irving Penn, and Diane Arbus, and Walker Evans, and Dorothea Lange.
And Walker Evans, as I saw.
All that stuff. So yeah, so I'm a very, very, very old school, classically aesthetic person with trying to add my own twist to it. But what? Like Evil Knievel. Yeah, I want to blow some stuff up, and I have got to do that. That was a dream. I always wanted to set things on fire for a job, and I got to do that for some rock band. So I incorporate that into things. Not tonight. I didn't show any of those, but yeah, there's a lot of that sort of classic. I kind of want to have this sense of humanity, and I'm not really into the glitzy thing. It's not my thing. It's just not what I'm about. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just mine is like more a thrift store aesthetic.
One of the things I see today is everybody wants to go and watch a couple of YouTube videos, and they're going to go off and be a photographer. And I think it's what you look at before you go and pick up a camera. And while you continue to do that, and people come and go in vogue. I mean, Diane Arbus was very hot when I was going to school, and Gary Winogrand, and now all of a sudden his name comes up because of the big shows. And so I think that's one of the things that your work speaks to, is that you understand what came before, so you don't have to recreate it, but you can just make it your own. You can appropriate it without recreating the wheel. And a lot of that stuff had that sort of, just in the Bible, it has that biblical sort of pace and cadence to it. It's just really, the people are not heroic but spiritual, and I just was wondering where that all came from.
Yeah, That's, you know, my family and my upbringing and all that education. I mean, I really believe if you can buy it, beg for it, or steal it, it's not a point of view or a style. You know, your style comes from within. If it's a button you press or a lens you buy, not that you can't, you need to buy lots of things here, but, you know,
Especially
you need to do your own
especially
thing.
that new light.
Especially the new light. You know you need the tools, but if that's what you're dependent on to make your picture, it's not going to have much soul to it because it's, you know, it's just a press of the button. Whether, I mean, that goes back to like if you were making, you know, when I was in college, we used to say, you know, if it doesn't work small, make it big. If it doesn't work big, make a T-shirt. Because it was like, people just kept taking horrible pictures and how can I make this work? Well, it doesn't work. So, you know, I really think it comes from within, and you have to get what's within into the work. And whatever it is makes you special. If you're into super glamour and that's what's within you, that's cool. If you're into this, you know, we all have room. But that's pretty much what informs what. You're spot on with that assessment, pretty much.
Yeah, 2 questions. One was, what drew you to Cuba? And the second question is, when you start a personal project, do you go into it with any sort of intention, or do you just let it develop based on the response to the environment?
I am very interested in places that have a history in my childhood. So I like to go see what is going on in a place that I've thought about. Like, Selma was a big thing when I was a kid. You know, there was some horrible stuff that happened in Selma. And I remember being a little kid and my dad explaining how this is really bad and, you know, this is a horrible thing. And, you know, like it was a painted up certain picture of like, wow, that was a horrible thing. And then it, you know, how things progressed. And so for me, Selma, Alabama is someplace that really is burned in my head. So I just wanted to go there, meet people and see not really investigate on who did what and what, but what's going on there now and what are people like. You know, and sort of like find my own history there and my own sense of dignity and humanity and people that maybe are on whatever side of the topic and just find out what's there. So I go there with a sense of investigation, of trying to find something that is in my imagination that probably doesn't really exist, you know, but it exists in my picture in that moment. So like Italy's a big thing. I go to Italy every year. I teach a class in Italy. I have a book on Italy. My pictures of Italy are very romantic and very like, ooh, because that's how I see it. Now, that doesn't mean there's not horrible things in Italy. You know, there's lots of trash and there's, you know, corruption and there's pollution. But in my lens and the way I see it, it's like, oh, that's so soft and fuzzy. You know, and that's just because that's how I see it. That's how I want it in my little picture. That's what I do. So I go to places that have some connection. I went to Cuba, the same thing. When I was a little kid, you can't go to Cuba. You know, why can't you go to Cuba? You can't go to Cuba. You know, and there's all this stuff about Cuban Missile Crisis and Cubans this and Cuban that, and there's this whole mystique on you can't go. Of course, I like anything I can't do. You know, like if you can't do it, I'm in. You know, let's do it. You know, I ride motorcycles. I want to do whatever I'm not supposed to do with it. You know, that's my thing. I race motorcycles. I like taking chances. I like risks. I like pushing myself. Cuba was cool because I wouldn't go to Cuba illegally because I work for a lot of financial companies. I work for a lot of people that do background checks. I mean, we just worked with President Clinton a few weeks ago. They do a check, make sure you're authentic. I don't want to break the law because it's not good for my career, but I was offered to teach a class there that had a license from the government. As a cultural exchange between American and Cuban photography and artists. And I thought, I'm in because I've always wanted to go there. I just didn't want to break the law because it's not really my thing. So, but it was on that list of places I always wanted to go because when I was a kid, it was talked about a lot. And I had this like imagination of what it is. So I go there basically trying to, you know, find this little vision in my head from a way, way back. The bayous from the Creedence Clearwater song about the bayou that I heard when I worked at a gas station in the 70s. I always thought, I need to go to this bayou. That sounds pretty cool. You know, so I went there and did that. And so they're usually triggered by very bizarre things that don't really mean anything to anybody else but my little imaginative world. But I definitely have an agenda of what I want to do when I get there. I want to shoot X amount of portraits a day. I'm very motivated to meet so many people. I want to find a textural landscape that illustrates how I feel about this place. I want to find. I try to make my projects like when I shoot motion. You know, you have to tell more of a narrative, and there's a close, medium, and far, establishing shot, and then telling the story. And I try to do that with these photo projects, is have pictures that give a well-rounded point of view of the environment and how I see it. For me, Cuba is an incredibly beautiful and tragic place. It's both. The people are beautiful. What I find super beautiful is this nostalgic thing, but at the same time, it's really tragic because those people are living in 1959, and there's a lot of issues with that. So it's kind of this weird, like, you know, it was really a strange situation for me in my brain to process what, you know, how beautiful this is, but really, if I had to live like that, I probably wouldn't like it. So I was trying to find my balance. So I was trying to find how I see it and how I relate, and it sort of evolves. I'm not so, I have a list of what I want to do, but I'm not rigid in that if I see something better, I go that way. It's not like a job that I'm fulfilling. Does that make sense?
Do you find it a huge, does it take a huge effort to actually approach people? Is it just something that happens because I've tried in a different country and it didn't work out well, so now I'm kind of afraid when I want to do something like that? As much as my heart wants to, I'm a little bit nervous about it.
Right. Well, I have to say that I started out as a photographer in school that shot landscapes and structure, and I was not into people at all. And I had a large format class with this professor, Chuck Schwedlin, and the assignment was confrontation. I thought, he means you have to go out and you have to talk to somebody, and they have to look in your camera, and it can't be an observation, it can't be a landscape with somebody walking through our street. It has to be, you know, confrontation. So I went out and set up my little tripod, found a place, and waited, and got my person. But I'm enthusiastic, and and also I'm very competitive. I want to win. I want to have the best shot, and I want to destroy the class. So I'm going to shoot a lot of them. You know, because that's just my nature. I'm not into being like half-assed. If I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail in a huge way. So I got really into it, even though I was scared to death. But I had to convince myself to believe it was going to happen. And then it happened. And then I kind of got addicted to it. And all I shot after that was people. Changed my whole life, my whole direction. And I find in foreign countries it's actually easier to shoot than in America because people generally are more interested and respectful of what I'm doing than here, where people are suspect about, oh, especially as a man, you know, what am I up to? I'm, you know, trying to molest you or whatever. You know, like it's like you have to be really like, you know, careful because people in America are very much suspect. So the things I do is I have images on my iPhone, or I have a little printed book, and I show people what I'm doing. Here's what I'm doing. I'd like to work with you. I learn a little bit of the language, or I have somebody with me to help me. But even then, I try to learn because I show some respect. I learned some basic things, you know, just to get it going. And people just, I have to say, I have probably about a 90% yes ratio wherever I go. And I've shot in, I don't know, probably 50 countries in the world for jobs and for my own self. And I think it's like an attitude, like you just got to know it's going to happen. It's kind of like this. You may have had this experience. If you are in a romantic situation and you're all happy, everybody wants to go out with you because you walk around with a certain aura of happiness. And as soon as you break up with that person, you're all dark and you really want to go out with somebody, nobody wants to be with you, right? Because you're projecting darkness. So you have an aura, and this sounds all like New Age, but I just really believe it, that you have this sort of aura that you project that you can control based on whatever you put your mind to. And I'm a very determined person. That's my main thing is I'm determined, and I'm really into what I'm doing, and I try to get people to be into it. But I don't try to do it blindly. In the old days, I shot everything 4x5, and I'd shoot 2 4x5s, and I'd shoot a 4x5 Polaroid, and I'd give them a present. And that really brought, that was like the circus came to town for #1. This guy's got a cape, he's got this cool camera, and it's like, it was wood and a Deerdorf, and I'd walk around Italy or wherever, and the whole, it was like I was a zebra or something walking down, you know, Michigan Avenue. And everybody loved
Pied
me.
Piper.
And when I first showed up with a digital camera, it was like, oh, you know, and I realized, yeah, like there was no circus, so I had to become the circus, you know, even more. I had to like work harder to get, because it wasn't like I could just set up my camera and people were curious, because I just was like somebody else. But I don't, I also find it, it's not where you are physically, it's where you are inside. So it's not where my feet are, it's where my head is that makes it work. And if I walk around too much, I don't get anything. So if I find one spot, and I know, I have a vision, I like this light, I like this place, and I just wait. People show up, and I shoot it, and then I use those people to get my next people. Because I say, hey, if you like this, you know, you haven't known any good places, and then, you know, my head's in a good spot. I'm not walking around trying too hard, I'm just letting it happen. And then it just sort of happens. Like the woman in Selma with the hat, She brought me back to her house. We went through her dresses. She has like, I don't know, 60 hats, and like I could have done the whole project in her house because she was so amazing. I just needed to do some other stuff. But you know, like people suddenly they're having you for dinner. They're giving you gifts. Like there's a guy in Italy I photograph all the time. Always gives me honey or herbal elixirs because he makes all this stuff. Every year I stop in and say hi. He just loves it. He, you know, likes that. And I come back to the same place a lot too. You know, to photograph. Not these places, but my Italian work I've revisited the same place for years. But that's part of it. You just have to believe in yourself, and when someone rejects you, you have to think their loss, and not think it's your loss. And that's, you know, that's how I think. I think, well, they lost out on having a great photo. Somebody else will get this great photo. And you know, a lot of it's just being confident. So I never was any good at sports, but photography, that's my sport, finding people, getting things to go. And but I don't think any professional sports player ever thinks they're going to miss a shot or not do whatever they're supposed to be paid to do. And I'm the same thing with photography. I never, ever think it's not going to work, even when it's ridiculous.
While going into it, did you have a lot of people telling you, no, it's not going to happen, don't do it, change courses?
Well, yeah, I think, you know, I was very lucky that my family was very supportive of the arts. Now, that's a gift. But most people, I think, you know, like, I remember my first day of photo class in school. There were probably this many people, and the teacher said, probably about 2 of you will ever have a job in photography. But if you're really into it, you should stay in this major. I was like, whoa. Like, I mean, that was like crazy. But he's right. There's probably 2 from my original class that actually are still photographers today. Yeah, people always are telling you, you know, those kinds of things, but you can't believe them. You have to make your own path. You can't follow other people's path in this, particularly this, in a creative field. You definitely have to believe in yourself. You have to cut your own path, and you just got to do whatever it takes to get whatever's in your head out on the piece of paper or on the monitor or whatever you're doing.
So when you mentioned when you were in Cuba, you kind of give yourself a quota for how many portraits you might want to do in a day or something. Or maybe not there, but somewhere else. When you're not motivated, do you have little tricks to get yourself up, or if you're not feeling up about a particular project, or you know you want to get some work done, but I don't know. What do you do when you're lacking motivation?
Ride a motorcycle.
Yeah, that always motivates me. I mean, I'm pretty self-motivated. I have to say that if I was not feeling it, I would just sit in a nice spot, enjoy the light, have an espresso or whatever, and get myself like, you know, here you are, get it together. You know, self-coaching is a lot of things. I mean, I race motorcycles, the same thing. I'm like, okay, if you start to wreck, you go, you know, going off the track, I say, rear brake, rear brake, rear brake, rear brake. I talk to myself so I don't hit the front brake and totally implode, you know. So I talk to myself in my head, you know, I hear the voices. You know? But, you know, I think part of it is just sitting down and relaxing and just, you know, marinating on what is the why am I here, and what am I doing? And when you can answer those questions, it motivates you to get going. But I think it's instead of, I also do things, sometimes if something's really not working, like some people just give up and walk away, I just keep doing it. I'm like relentless. I'll just shoot bad pictures till I get, whatever darkness is in my head comes out, and I get, you know, I get back on the groove. I'm not the kind of person that is like, you know, if I was a writer and I had writer's block, I'd just write, you know.
I have a block.
I have writer's block. I have writer's block. I have writer's block, and then suddenly I'd have a whole something would happen. Block, yes, the block did this or whatever. You know, like I'm just the kind of person that I have to be active and I have to work myself out of that situation.
On these personal projects, do you mostly just walk around by yourself, or do you have like a couple assistants with you? And also, do you use natural light mostly on these?
On most of my recent projects, everything you saw here was all done natural light. I do and I teach workshops where I talk about using architecture as light source. Mm-hmm. So I use the natural buildings and the way light hits buildings to light my pictures. And I find a spot generally, and I bring the person to the spot. That's why the light's very consistent. Because I'm not controlling the light with all this stuff, but I'm doing it with my eyes, and I know a certain look, and I find the spot. And sometimes it's 3 feet over. Sometimes it's across the street, you know. But, you know, I do that. I generally work with other people. I'm like high maintenance to the max, you know, like I'll admit it. I'm not a loner walking around with my camera. I always have somebody with me, sometimes more than people. Particularly I find as a man, it helps to have a woman helping me because I look less like the creep.
Quick, somebody go stand by him.
Yeah, I'm creepy. But, you know, I think it's really important, for me at least, sometimes they say, hey, you know, if there's certain people, I have a woman talk to that person instead of myself. That's just how I work. I don't think it's 100% necessary. But I have a photo business. I'm used to working with an assistant or other people. I'm used to having lots of people with me. So, you know, I always usually have somebody with me. And that doesn't mean that I don't walk around. Like some of those pictures in Cuba, I shot by myself. But because other people were taking pictures, I was in a workshop and I just saw somebody, you know, I had my daughter with me who speaks Spanish. I learned a little Spanish, but, you know, she could really, like, she's totally fluent. Like, you know, if the person wasn't working with so I sometimes have some help with that. But I'm not a solo, I'm a high maintenance, I need some love. Kind of guy.
So follow up on that, Paul. So like in Cuba, because you're a commercial photographer, you're doing a personal project, or you're thinking maybe it's going to have a commercial end where you're going to do a book, or are you chasing people for model releases as you go around, or are you just exploring?
I'm honest with people. I tell them I'm doing a project. It might be an art gallery, it might be on my website, but I'm not going to ever sell it as a commercial vehicle. If I did, I would find them and pay them some money or give them. You know, I usually get people's information if they're, you know, just to send them. They're very suspect of giving information because there could be a consequence. But in general, like all the Italians that I shoot in Selma and Bayou, I send everybody a print. Those people all signed releases because if I get a vibe like they're cool, I have them sign a release, but I still would never just use their picture without talking to them because I do jobs and I'm not here to exploit you. You know, it's not my thing. I can make my money over here. And in an art gallery, you don't really need to have a model release, and you can get sued anyway, even with one. So,
Right.
you know what I mean? So it doesn't really matter. I have insurance. Someone sues me, that's why I have insurance. But I don't really take pictures generally that are going to make people be upset that they're portrayed that way. I'm not here to make people look in their darkest moment generally. Not that I haven't shot pictures like that, but you know, most of the time my personal work is a little more aspirational. Not necessarily like woo, but you know, it's a little more spiritually driven and a little more of a sense of humanity that most people like. I usually send them always a print. In Cuba, it was more difficult, but I sent, you know, you have to send a disc to an assistant. The assistant's going to travel to Cuba, and you know, there's a way of doing it. I always try to get people pictures when I can. I send everybody on those other projects photographs. When I did a book in Italy, I went around to every person I photographed and gave them a book, you know, and a poster from the show, and they all loved it. You know, I'm very much I'm into going back a lot. Also, if I find a nice spot, I'll go back and meet the people, even if that's just a launching pad for something else. I think releases are good, but I don't let them get in the way of the process. Sometimes it just ruins that kind of moment. I'd rather have a good photo than a bad photo that I can sell. You know what I mean? I'd rather have a good photo I can put on my wall, and you know what I mean? That feels better to me because I can make money shooting, you know, commercial jobs. But that being said, if you can get paperwork, it's awesome, and whenever I can, I do.
So you said a lot of commercial photographers use their personal project to get the commercial. So what do you do with it? Just send it out to your clients as far as postcards still, or do you just give them website links so they see your new stuff?
You do whatever you can do. Whatever comes to mind. You know, like I have an agent, you know, Emily's one of my agents back there. She's out there knocking the doors down, showing images. I have a website, I have Twitter, I have, you know, Facebook, I got Tumblr pictures, I send out pictures, I have, you know, basically it's like, you know, I have a more of a shotgun approach, just like, you know, whatever I can afford to do. I'm in the workbook, sometimes I'm in Elledge, sometimes I'm in Archive, in different publications that go to these people. I go to, you know, my agents are continually doing shows and showing work. You know, I also will go on these meetings sometimes if I'm not working and I can meet people. I mean, in reality, in the modern world, you know, when I started out as photography back in 1860, there weren't that many photographers, right? But nowadays, everybody's a photographer. You know, I got my phone here, my aunt has a 5D, so you have to really, you know, your work has to be really good, consistent, and you have to be somebody they want to hang out with for a week or travel or whatever. So sometimes getting to know you is important because they want to make sure you're not going to be a dick or some nutcase. You know what I mean?
That's a technical PPA term, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you know, and how do you deal with people, and who do you surround yourself with? Who's your producers and your assistants and your digitechs and your hair and makeup? You know, who do you hang out with, and what's your crew? How tight's your crew, and how efficient? You know, it's not like my jobs are big, lots of people, so everybody has to be vetted. Otherwise, they have to go because they're bringing the whole scene down. And it could be the smallest thing. So jobs are so hard to get. You want to make sure when you get it, you're doing your thing, and everybody's also living the dream. So, you know, I do whatever comes to mind. If, you know, like, I went to an agency, big agency just opened here yesterday, got invited to the party, went to the party now, you know, send them some notes, and I talk to them, and, you know, you just stay in contact. But my agents are I'm not the best salesperson. I'm just me. If you like me, great. If you don't. But fortunately, the people that represent me are all really sweet and nice and smart, and, you know, make me look good. You know, and that reflects on me. If I, you know, the people that represent me are all on top of it, and that's important, and they're a big part of it. I entered a lot of contests like CA and, you know, award things, graphies, and stuff like that that are looked at by my kind of clients. So you have to sort of be wherever they are. If you're doing, you know, what I do, you need to win some awards, you need to be in agencies, design firms, and you need to do work that sticks out from everybody else that they see, because they see a zillion photographers. If, you know, if you're doing another kind of medium, like when I used to shoot I started out doing all rock and roll stuff. I shot album covers, rock videos, Rolling Stone, Spin Magazine. So what I went to lots of concerts, and I was, you know, around musicians, and I was doing that kind of stuff because that was where I was trying to get work. So you have to be out there. So, you know, for example, if you want to have a gallery show, you can't expect a gallery if you don't go to the gallery and see the work and get to know people and open the door. You have to somehow be social. And I'm really not that social. You know, I like my little world, but I'm not that big on everybody else's world unless I want to take a picture there. So I have to really work at that. It's really not like my favorite thing to do at all. But you have to keep the dream alive, and you have to sometimes do things that are like that. At least I do. But you know, hopefully Emily does it better for me.
Who's Emily? Hi, Emily.
Yeah.
Hey, Paul, got a question for you. You had said that you were actually shooting large format earlier on. Would you consider shooting a personal project of yours large format again?
Yeah, I still have all the cameras. And
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, if I used to have, I'm like when I shoot pretty much everything the same way once I like it.
Mhm.
So the 4x5 I have like 3 of the same lens that I shot everything with and all that. And I sold part of it, but I always kept enough to do a project. So I had like 5 Hasselblads, I still have 1, and I have the lens that's the best work, the lenses selection. So I still shoot that, and I still have my view camera. You know, for me, it's really just, you know, the infrastructure of getting the product and having it. You know, I'm not really into processing film. I love making prints. I still have my darkroom, but I'd have to have someone. I don't know if I'd have to really be motivated to go and process film. I never like processing film. I always like making prints. I mean, I could do it. Elaine does her film. I made it. You know, she shoots 4x5 personal work. So you know, we had the stuff at the studio.
The photographer takes the picture, the assistant processes the film.
Well, so, you know, she processes her own film, but maybe I get her to process mine. But you know, I'd be willing to do it. But I love the view camera, and you know, it's it was a sad moment when all that stuff. You come over here. Oh, you don't have plus X. You don't have whatever.
Yeah.
Hello. I remember I was doing something for Billy Corrigan, and he wanted everything 8x10. He really liked my 8x10 stuff, and I remember coming over to the other place that used to be over there, and you know, they stopped making the film I shot. And I was like, it was like, so I had to like scramble to figure out what I was going to do, because I'm very systematic. I like to make sure the technology is all supported before I go take a picture. I had to refabricate my brain. So, you know, but yeah, I wouldn't mind going back to those days if I could, but you know, it's hard to go backwards.
What old is new and new goes?
Anything else?
So did you assist coming up?
Yes, I assist. I really think assisting, to me, I went to art school, and I had a point of view, but I didn't know what to do with it. You know, like, how do I talk to clients? How do productions work? How do you fly around the world on it? You know, I don't know this stuff. So the main guy I worked for was Mark Hauser. That's who I, really traveled all over the place and worked with lots of famous people and really learned how to get my point of view expressed with other people. I worked with Richard E. Zooey initially, was a still life photographer that I worked with that kind of beat the crap into my head how to like be ritualistic about work and how things do, and he was just like awesome kind of, I have always been kind of ADD, and I still am, but he got me to learn to focus on specific things that were needed to be done to follow a production through. And I also traveled a lot with him. So I learned to travel, and I just think it's really hard if you don't learn, like if you make a mistake as a photographer, you're done. So you make a mistake as an assistant, someone's going to catch it, more than likely, and you're going to learn from it, and you're going to learn not to make that mistake. And plus I had no money, so I couldn't have had a business. I came in with like $200 in my pocket, and, so I had to get a job and figure out what the hell I was doing. And I just think that whole learning that craft and that technique was important. So I worked for a lot of photographers that I'm very grateful to. And they also were very generous to me once I wanted to become a photographer and helped me figure out what the hell I was doing. So, yeah, for sure.
How do you prepare when you do a commercial shoot and have somebody famous that you're shooting that's been already shot a million times? So it's like different.
I just do my thing. You know what I mean? I don't really look, I don't concern myself with what everybody else is doing. I just concern with myself. I'm very self-absorbed.
Well, because they're hiring you for you.
Yeah, they're hiring me for what
You
I'm
don't
doing,
want to-
and they've already told me what they like about what I'm doing, and so I'm not really concerned with what has gone before me. You know, I'm just doing my thing, and I am as good at what I do as they are at what they do. So I treat everybody the same. You could be the guy that brought in lunch, or you could be the guy that's on TV, or you could be the, I treat everybody the same, respectful, nice, professional. And I don't, and I get them to do what I need to do. And it just seems to work. But I don't really get caught up in who they are or what came before me, or I'm competitive with myself to try to do the best shot I can, whatever came to my head for that. And I don't do any research in who they are or anything. In fact, half the time someone calls me in, I had to put on hold, hey, who's this person? Back when I did tons of like magazines for entertainment, I didn't know who half these people are. I don't watch TV that much. And you have to ask some assistant, like, who's Kanye West? I never heard of this guy. Oh. You should, it's just, I remember asking Jason, this assistant, who's totally into that stuff. I was like, I don't know who this guy is. Oh, you should shoot him. Okay, yeah, will that work out? You know what I mean? It's just like, I don't get too caught up. I'm more into bring them into my world and get them into that situation of what we're trying to do and try to get their world away.
Which was my next question. If people come in with who they think they want you to capture, but you have your own style, any tips on how you get them to look what you want them to look like?
Well, there's a negotiation in everything. I will give you an example. There's a guy named William Shatner who's Captain Kirk, right?
Yeah.
So I was photographing for the cover of TV Guide, and I was the third guy to go there to shoot this guy. So I get a lot of jobs that are difficult. Apparently, these other two guys failed. So I set up my shot, and he came in. I said, how you doing? We're going to do this. We're gonna do. And I always talk people through it. Well, here's what we're going to do. Boom, 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 boom. He's like, well, that's great, Paul, but that's my bad side. I said, really? Well, I said, let's do a test. I'll do my side, and let's do your side, and we'll look at both Polaroids, and if you don't like it, we'll talk about it. Is that fair? He said, yeah, that sounds fair. Let's do it. So I shot, and I always shoot my side first and my shot first. Shot the Polaroid, shot the film real quick, then I have it. I'll do whatever you want. Once I have my shot, you can pick a bad shot. That's your, that's fine. But I already have my shot. And I shot my shot in the Polaroid, then I shot his shot, different direction, and then we looked at him and he said, oh my God, Paul, I've been wrong all these years. So, I'm respectful, but I always try to get my shot first because I know it's the right shot. And that's what I'm being paid to do. And that doesn't mean that sometimes people, don't need more, but most people will cooperate and say, hey, I'm willing to listen to you. I'll do what you want, but let me just do what I want first, and then we'll talk about it. It's third world. They can choose the wrong picture if they want, but I still have my picture. But I'm not like my way or the highway. I'm more like, let's do it both ways.
Sure.
You met him with respectful confidence that he wasn't used to.
Is that what it was?
Yes. I think that right there was half the battle.
Yeah, so I mean, you have to believe in your point of view. You have to trust yourself or no one's going to trust you. You know what I mean? You also can't be like, no, my way or the highway. You know, you can't be a
Yeah.
fascist, but you know, you can say, hey, that's cool, but let's do it this way and that way, and you know, decide later. That's my major line is, that's cool, let's just do it both ways. I'm fast, because I am really fast. I'm not like, I don't contemplate much, I just do it. And things are always really set up before they show up, so it's like, bam, here's what we're doing. So I can do it their way, everybody's way. And that's how I am with clients. Like last week in LA, I had the shot, I set the person up, I shot it, and the client said, well, what if we did this? Oh yeah, we try that. What if we do that? Try that. What if we do this? Try that. And I said, let's just look at all 4 shots before you go. And I said, that one. They said, oh, we really like this one. Let's go back to that. It was my first shot. You know, but I wasn't like, yeah, why don't you fucking listen to me? I just said, okay, this is okay. You know what I mean? You know, I may have said that to Elaine, but you know, like these guys are killing me. But after a while, they realized that the way I had it set up was the right way, right? So that I've done this a few times, and you know, they might. But you know, but you have to listen. The main thing is people want to be heard. You don't have to necessarily do what they want, but you have to listen and acknowledge that you listened to them, and that you respected their opinion. And then I was happy to do it. I'd do it everybody's way. I just want to make sure I get my way too, because for me, you don't have to use my picture. I just want to have my picture because I want to have my picture. But I'll do it your way. I'll do it her way. I'll do it that guy's way. I'll do everybody's way. But as long as I can do my way. So I don't put it that way. I just say, yeah, let's do it all these different ways. It's cool. I'm not into, this is all we're doing. You know what I mean? I'm not, you know, in the old days of filming, I'd say, well, you know, we can do this, but it's going to cost $800 more because we're going to shoot this 4x5 film, this Polaroid, sign here, let's do it. You know, it was a little more costly to do these choices, but I can also shoot a couple frames to get my shot. I don't need to shoot 20 rolls film.
Sure.
But, you know, I think collaborative, and sometimes you're wrong. I mean, as right as I am, sometimes people know something that I don't know. You know, there might be something that I wasn't enlightened to. It could be an angle or something about whatever it is we're doing, and you go, oh, you know, I'm wrong. I'll take it. I don't care as long as it's good. I just don't want to do bad work. So I'm open to doing everybody's way.
Thank you.
Any regrets?
Any regrets? I should have been a stock. No, I love my life. I have no regrets. You know, I've made bad choices, but I own them, and it's okay. I think sometimes bad things create good things. So, you know, it's like, you know, you choose this way, you choose that way, and you might, when I was young, I did some really stupid shit. I will admit it, and some people in this room have seen me do it. And maybe, but I owned it, and it's moved forward, you know? And, you know, I just was so excited and passionate about what I did, I would just blow through anything to get it. And I don't really do that anymore. But, you know, I just think, you know, I'm really lucky to have the life I've had, and if it all stopped tomorrow, I'd just ride motorcycles. I should have rode motorcycles earlier in my life. That's my only regret. Anything else? You guys have been really great. I appreciate it. And I hope you guys all go out and do your thing. And hopefully next time I'll be sitting there and you guys will be up here talking, and I'll learn something from you guys. So I appreciate it. And thanks for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you.